ball knowers. We are joined by Jovan Buha. Jovan, what's going on, man?
I'm doing well. Thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely. So, star of Buha's Block. I listened to the podcast. It's terrific. Let me ask you, did you see the LeBron news coming?
I did. I still was a bit surprised. I wouldn't say I was shocked. I've been talking about it on my show that about a week ago, I'd been asked what's the percentage that LeBron is staying in LA, and I had said about 57%. Yesterday, I dropped that to about 50.5%, said it was essentially a coin flip. And I just think if you look at the actions of the Lakers summer and the way that they were operating, they were clearly prioritizing re-signing Austin Reeves, and they got that job done. And then they were starting to look toward restricted free agency and the trade market in terms of making bigger long-term moves for the starting group. So they were not operating as a team that was necessarily planning to retain LeBron James. It felt more like a nice to have or maybe a want rather than a need. And I think from the LeBron side, obviously, the big thing the last couple of days has been he's looking for a situation where he can maximize his happiness. I don't think he was happy with the current state of where things were with the Lakers, and he's also looking to be in a certain role, I think even more so than necessarily the money or competing for a championship, although, we'll obviously see depending on which team he ends up with. So I think all those things and sort of the slow burn of these two sides drifting apart over the last few years ultimately led to where things are at now.
I mean, Jovan, I know that the line has been at maximizing happiness, and I do believe there's something there, but and maybe we'll never know this for sure, but do you believe there's a part of LeBron that looked and saw what Austin Reeves got and realized that he wasn't going to be able to match that? In other words, was there maybe a little bit of offense taken that he was going to have to play third fiddle on this team salary-wise to say Luka and Austin Reeves?
I think there was an element there for sure. I mean, I think anyone objectively looking at the situation knew that the Lakers were not going to pay LeBron James as much as Austin Reeves. I mean, that was just not going to be in the cards of what the Lakers were trying to do. I had been talking about it on my show that maybe there's something in that $20 to $25 million range where it's more than anyone else can pay him, but it's also low enough where it maintains a certain amount of flexibility. The Lakers can still go out, get a restricted free agent. They could still go out and make a big trade and then just keep LeBron at a smaller number. But I mean, clearly going into this market, the market for LeBron is teams at the non-taxpayer MLE or minimum contracts, just based on the teams that he's interested in, the teams that are interested in him, and that makes sense. Those teams don't have max cap space. So LeBron's market was not going to be at the same level as a guy like Austin, who's obviously younger, different phase of his career, and had multiple teams interested in him for a max offer, which the Lakers ultimately had to not only match, but surpass. So I think from that perspective, I'm sure there's an element of him realizing the situation, but I mean, we don't even know what the Lakers were willing to pay him. We still don't have clarity on if they're even interested in retaining him at all, right? Like, I think optically, LeBron is the one breaking up here and deciding to move on, but I've yet to hear anything substantial in terms of, well, the Lakers had a $25 million salary slot, a $20 million salary slot. The Lakers might have just been like, hey, we're going to build a team and here's a minimum if you want to stay. And so if that's the case, then yes, technically LeBron is the one ending this, but the Lakers weren't exactly offering him an enticing offer, on their side either. So I think it was just the natural conclusion of where things were going. But certainly I think one thing with LeBron is very calculated. And for someone who's covered him now for 7 years, when he says certain things, it sticks out. And to me, what really stuck out from his exit interview at the end of the season was he brought up unprompted playing that number 3 role and taking a back seat to Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves and being a number 3 for the first time in his career. And I thought that was a pointed reference of I don't think he necessarily loved that. I don't think that was his preference in terms of taking a step back to that degree with how great he still is. We saw that in that first round series. So I think that was a big thing too, was wasn't just the money. I think the role, I think some of the stuff over the last few years, I think all that stuff built to him eventually wanting to leave.
So the names that have been linked now to the Lakers by multiple people, Sandro Makulashvili,
Call him Mamu. Mamu for short.
All right, let's go with Mamu. Quentin Grimes and Jalen Duren. What are you hearing about those guys? And what do those guys bring to the table?
Yeah, I would also throw in Walker Kessler, who's another restricted free agent center. I think despite not being as decorated as Jalen Duren, would actually be an even better fit than Jalen Duren because he's a lower usage big man who I think can thrive in the pick and roll with Luka and Austin. Is also a much better defensive player and rim protector. But the Lakers right now, to my understanding, they're going to have a couple meetings to open free agency with Walker Kessler and Jalen Duren. They are going to explore sign and trade probabilities and possibilities because the thing here is with the way that restricted free agency works, the last player to actually sign an offer sheet and leave was back in 2020 with Bogdan Bogdanovic. It has been a long time since a restricted free agent actually left via offer sheet. The way you get a restricted free agent is either a massive overpay or a sign and trade. So there's been a couple guys that have been via sign and trade. And I think that's what the Lakers would be looking for, would be, can we keep the number relatively low so we don't have to overpay? And can we maybe send out a pick or something, some sort of asset to either Utah or Detroit to land one of these guys? But you want to try to get that settled very quickly into free agency, because if you go the offer sheet route, then you are locked up until potentially July 8th. And because you got to go past the moratorium, then they have 2 days to potentially match it. And if you go to July 8th, all of a sudden you're left with nobody left, and it's all minimum guys, and like you've wasted your offseason. So I don't see the Lakers going that route. I think they're going to try and find a sign and trade. If they can't, then I think it's moving on to phase B, which is looking at the trade market and looking at the unrestricted free agents. That's where Quentin Grimes, Mamu, guys like that. Mamu to me is clearly a bench big. He is not a starting level big. Yeah. He's not good enough defensively. He's a defensive liability. So I like him next to Jackson. If they go like center by committee, he's a nice contrast to Jackson. He's a stretch big. He's skilled. He can pass. He's not a starter, and he's not a defensive anchor. So I think that would be a mistake if that's the role that they're trying to put him in. I think Grimes I like. I just don't think, if he's like the Marcus Smart replacement, he's not anywhere close to as good as Marcus on defense. So they still need another defender out there if they're adding Grimes.
All right, let me ask you about Walker Kessler and Jalen Duren. What do we have that is appealing to Utah and Detroit that would make them consider a sign and trade?
Draft capital. That's it.
That's it. It's those two first-round draft picks?
Yeah, I mean, and that would be a steep price to pay for them. I think the logic would be, hey, Utah, hey, Detroit, we're going to go, we're willing to go to the max, or we're willing to go to a certain number that makes you uncomfortable and force your hand here, where either you lose the asset for nothing or you're retaining the player on a contract that you don't feel is worth it for them. And now you're in this position where you have this guy on this albatross contract that you don't necessarily want. Like, we will call your bluff and we will force your hand here if you don't play ball with us. So why don't you play ball with us? We'll sign the guy to a lesser deal, but then to make it worth it for you, we send you a pick. So it's basically like you either have to overpay the player to retain them and match the contract if you're the incumbent team, or you just lose them for nothing and then you lost a big piece. So I think the appeal for Utah or Detroit would just be,